What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, The Maverick Conservative. I am your host, MC, and today I want to get into a video that's actually been making its rounds over the past couple of days. I'm a little late to the party as far as making a reaction to it or commenting on this particular video, but it's a video of Dr. Phil. He has a panel, and he's asking the panel about reparations. That's the topic. And what's made this particular clip or show go viral is him getting thoughts and opinions from a Black civil rights activist by the name of Robert Woodson. And from what I understand, he speaks very eloquently about his opinion regarding reparations in the current state of America, in particular Black America. So let's go ahead and get into it.
You say you don't support reparations. Why not?
Not everybody suffered equally. I mean, when you go into slavery, it's much more complex than white people were the oppressors and Black people were the victims. If you dissect it, you will find there were about 3,700 free Blacks who owned 12,000 slaves.
Now, as far as that percentage, those free Blacks, or free Black folk that was actually owning slaves, there's a caveat to that, and I'll kind of get into that in my final thoughts at the end of this.
Black slaves. The question is, do the descendants of those free Blacks who owned Black slaves, do they pay? Blacks really benefited more the first 100 years after slavery we have in the last 50 years. I was born in 1937 during the Depression. Everyone in my small, low-income Black community, 98% of the households had a man and a woman raising children.
That is an interesting point that he's just brought up. I was actually having a conversation with a relative of mine about that very same topic, how we believe, or actually I believe, the absence of the father in the home has actually led to a lot of what's going on in the Black and brown communities in America right now.
Elderly people could walk safely in that community without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren. Never heard a gunfire during that time. Never heard of a child being shot to death in the crib. But there are 50 children today who have been shot and killed in our cities. If you're talking about remedies, we've got to look beyond saying that every solution has to have a winner and a loser. That Blacks can only benefit if whites lose. We have to be defined more than just victims of oppression. When whites were at their worst, Blacks were at their best. When we were denied access to hotels, we built our own. We have to communicate to our people the history of how they achieved in the face of oppression. But if we continue to sit back and say, all of the challenges that we face in out of wedlock births of violence, that somehow the control of that is in the hands of white America. And therefore, until white people change, there's nothing that we can do.
I definitely agree with that point too. If we stay with the victim mentality, we're never going to be able to achieve anything. I also agree with him in him saying that, back in the day, during the era of Jim Crow and before that, you had a lot of Black doctors and lawyers and businessmen. You have that now today too, but it doesn't seem to be so much of a pride thing as it was back then. Like, we were upwardly mobile. We were moving up the socioeconomic ladder, whether we had to do it by building our own communities. And then that's what we did. But today, it doesn't really seem like that's a reality. You got a lot of people, especially on the left, who just have this victim mentality and will say and do anything to make sure that we continue to have this belief. I'm gonna say this false notion that we can't do anything because we're constantly going to be under the thumb of white supremacy. And I reject that notion. So I agree with him on that.
This sets up a terrible situation for this nation. The big crisis facing America is not racial. It is a moral and spiritual freefall that is consuming our children. The highest death rate among Black families is homicide. Among Silicon Valley, the highest level of suicide, 6 times the national average. In Appalachia, their prescription drugs. And so if we are to address this crisis that is causing our children to lack a sense of personal responsibility or value for their own life, they will take their own life or take someone else's. So in order to address that, we must come together
Powerful.
and look beyond race and realize America is drowning because it's in a moral and spiritual freefall. None of us should be defined by the worst of what we were in the past, but we should be defined by what we want to become in the future.
I believe
And
that
that
too.
people are motivated to change when you give them a vision of victories that are possible, not constantly reminding them of injuries to be avoided.
Well, there you have it. That was Robert Woodson, Black civil rights activist, giving his response to Dr. Phil as far as how he feels about the state of Black America and where we can go, or as far as how we can move forward within the Black community and as Americans, generally speaking. So I can see why this particular clip went so viral. He spoke so eloquently and articulate about the state of current affairs, and I agreed with him on quite a few points. I'm gonna go ahead and give my final thoughts. Let's go ahead and get into it. I understand Mr. Woodson's point when he says that not all Black Americans suffered equally under slavery, because there were also Black Americans who actually owned other Black Americans. Now, keep in mind, I'm not referring to those Black Americans that were owning their own family members, because that was the only way that they could actually get them off the plantation. I'm not talking about them. I'm actually referring to those pieces of shit who actually owned our own people for personal interests and profit. We should not solely focus on the past and the oppression that our people have faced because of racism. We should acknowledge the success and achievements that have been made in our communities in spite of having to face racism and discrimination. Woodson emphasizes the importance of defending ourselves based on our future aspirations rather than dwelling on the wounds of the past. While it's important to know the history, and I'm talking the full history of what our ancestors endured, I refuse to live in a society that believes it's okay to teach our children that their classmates are evil because of the mistakes of their ancestors, or that my child can't simply because they're Black. We have too many role models to be proud of and draw inspiration from beyond entertainment and sports. Just look at the many examples of other Blacks who have immigrated here from other countries who are now successful because of hard work and determination. If they can do it, so can we. We can get our asses up, work hard, and compete just like all the other ethnicities that have come to this country. While it's true we can't ignore racism, and we'll continue to stomp it out wherever we find it, we should be working towards removing the barriers that exist while addressing the issues in our communities, while at the same time fighting racism. I specifically refer to it as racism instead of systemic racism because I truly believe in my heart of hearts that America is not a systemically racist country. In fact, if I had to make a list of the top 10 things affecting Black America, racism wouldn't even make the list. As it pertains to reparations, I think I'm on the fence. I know that it's a fact that America has actually paid reparations to other ethnic groups that were wronged. Under Ronald Reagan, Japanese Americans got $20,000 each for being put in internment camps during World War II. Under President Obama, Native Americans got $3.4 billion for being cheated out of land royalties. Obama also provided $1.2 billion to Black farmers who were denied loans and other assistance by the USDA because of discrimination. Here's a question for you. If these groups were able to be compensated because of America's wrongdoing, then why can't the descendants of slaves get what was promised to their ancestors? In Special Order 15, I encourage you to pause and read this for yourself. Special Order 15 was a directive given by General William T. Sherman during the American Civil War. The order provided for the confiscation of 400,000 acres of land in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Land was to be redistributed to newly freed Black Americans in 40-acre lots. The order also allowed for the Army to loan each family a mule so these Americans could then work their land, hence the phrase 40 acres and a mule. The order was a means to provide these newly freed Black Americans a way for them to be self-sufficient and economically independent. Unfortunately, that order was actually rescinded and taken away by Democratic President Andrew Johnson. This led to a tremendous loss of opportunities for Black Americans. By the way, the parties never switched. It's been stated that the value of that land today would be in excess of $6 trillion. Here's another question. Were our ancestors wrong? If you answered yes, then maybe you also agree with reparations, just like those other ethnic groups received. I was on the fence at first, but after my research, I'm no longer on the fence. I'm not sure if the compensation should be a cash payout or education benefits. But what do you think? Thank you so much for hanging in there with me to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Your support means the world to me, and I'm grateful for every view, like, comment, and share. It's what keeps me going and motivates me to create content for you. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting that notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. And also, don't forget to like and share this video with your family and friends in hopes that they may like it too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on another episode of The Maverick Conservative.